Imagine this for a moment. It's a hot summer afternoon, the kind where the air feels heavy and every surface seems to radiate heat. You find two empty chairs, one tucked beside a tall concrete building, the other resting quietly under the wide canopy of a tree. You sit in both, one after the other, and without needing to think, you know something is different. The shade under the tree doesn't just feel cooler, it feels better. The air seems softer, the light gentler, even the silence carries a different quality. You may have never been able to explain why, but your body recognized it instantly. In this video, you're going to understand exactly what creates that difference and why sitting under a tree changes your body in ways far deeper than simple shade. Before we go further, take a second to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss more videos that break down everyday experiences using real science and clear explanations. Now let's go back to those two chairs. The difference between them is not imagination, and it's not just preference. It is physical, measurable, and consistent. In fact, there are 5 distinct layers that separate the environment under a tree from the one beside a building. These layers affect temperature, light, chemistry, sound, and even the invisible electromagnetic space around you. And in every one of these dimensions, the tree creates conditions that a building simply cannot replicate. Start with the most immediate difference: heat. The air beneath a tree is not just shaded, it is actively cooled. And this cooling doesn't come from blocking sunlight alone. A tree is constantly pulling heat out of the air through a process called transpiration. This is not passive like water evaporating from a puddle. It is a controlled biological system happening inside the tree itself. Water moves from the soil, through the roots, and up into the trunk through a network called xylem. From there it reaches the leaves, where tiny openings called stomata release water vapor into the air. What makes this remarkable is how the water moves upward. There is no mechanical pump. Instead, it is driven by tension, created when water molecules evaporate from the leaves and pull more water upward through cohesion. The bonds between water molecules allow a continuous column of water to rise against gravity, even in trees tens of meters tall. Every time a water molecule leaves the leaf and becomes vapor, it undergoes a phase change, and that phase change requires energy, specifically heat. That heat is drawn from the surrounding environment. So as the tree releases water vapor, it is also removing thermal energy from the air around it. The result is simple but powerful. The air becomes cooler. Now consider the scale. A single mature tree can release hundreds of liters of water in a single day. That process removes a massive amount of heat from the surrounding air, comparable to multiple air conditioning units running continuously. But unlike machines, this system requires no electricity, no fuel, no mechanical parts. It runs on sunlight, water, and the basic physics of evaporation. This is why the air beneath a tree feels different, not just less hot, but genuinely cooler in a deeper sense. The temperature itself is lower, not just the sensation of heat. And this creates a clear contrast with the shade of a building. When you sit beside a building, the structure may block the sun, but it does not remove heat. In fact, it often does the opposite. Materials like concrete, glass, and steel absorb solar energy throughout the day and slowly release it back into the environment. So even in the shade, you are surrounded by surfaces that are radiating stored heat. The air doesn't cool. It lingers with that trapped warmth. A tree behaves in the exact opposite way. Instead of storing heat, it continuously removes it. Instead of radiating warmth, it cools the air column beneath its canopy. As the day gets hotter, this effect becomes stronger, not weaker. The tree increases its transpiration, pulling even more heat from the environment. This is why the difference becomes most noticeable on the hottest days. You step out of building shade and into tree shade, and the change feels immediate. It's not just psychological comfort or a gentle breeze, it's physics. Your skin is detecting a real drop in thermal energy in the air itself. And once you begin to see it this way, the experience changes. That quiet preference you've always had, the instinct to choose the tree over the building, stops being a mystery. It becomes something precise, something measurable, something your body has been responding to all along without needing explanation. But this is only the first layer, because what the tree does to heat is just the beginning of a much deeper transformation happening in that space. And once you understand how a tree reshapes heat, the next layer begins to reveal something even more precise. Light itself is being changed in ways you cannot see, but your body can feel it, because the light beneath a tree is not simply dimmer sunlight. It is filtered, edited, and selectively transformed before it ever reaches your skin. A building blocks light. It creates shade by stopping photons entirely. But a tree does something far more sophisticated. Every leaf in the canopy acts like a biological filter, interacting with different parts of the solar spectrum. This process is driven by chlorophyll. Chlorophyll absorbs light strongly in two main regions: blue light around 430 nanometers and red light around 660 nanometers. These wavelengths carry the energy needed for the plant to convert sunlight into chemical energy. A large portion of this light is captured by the leaves above you. Green light, on the other hand, is mostly reflected. That's why leaves appear green to your eyes. But the most interesting part of this process lies beyond what you can see. In the near-infrared range, these wavelengths behave very differently. Unlike visible light, near-infrared is not strongly absorbed by chlorophyll. Instead, a significant portion of it passes through the leaves or is reflected. Even in a dense canopy, a large percentage of this near-infrared radiation continues downward, reaching the ground beneath the tree. The result is a very specific transformation. Ultraviolet radiation is heavily reduced. High-energy visible light is significantly lowered. But near-infrared remains present in relatively high amounts. So the light that reaches your skin under a tree is fundamentally different in composition. This matters because your body does not respond to all wavelengths of light in the same way. Certain parts can damage tissue, like ultraviolet radiation. Other wavelengths, particularly in the near-infrared range, interact with your cells in beneficial ways. Inside your cells, there is a structure called the mitochondria, the system responsible for producing energy. Within it, an enzyme known as cytochrome C oxidase responds to specific wavelengths of light, especially those in the red and near-infrared range. When exposed to these wavelengths, mitochondrial activity can increase, leading to higher energy production at the cellular level. Under a tree canopy, something unique happens. Much of the harmful ultraviolet light has already been filtered out. A large portion of the visible spectrum has been absorbed. But the near-infrared wavelengths, the ones your mitochondria respond to, are still reaching your skin, providing a deep cellular restoration. So while you are sitting in the shade, your body is not being cut off from light entirely. Instead, it is receiving a version of sunlight that is more aligned with your biology. Less damaging radiation, more beneficial wavelengths. This is not something a building can replicate. A wall blocks everything equally. It does not filter, it eliminates. Even sunscreen, which is designed to protect your skin, does not operate with this level of selectivity. It reduces ultraviolet exposure, but it can also limit the beneficial wavelengths that your cells use. A tree canopy, by contrast, naturally balances this process without any external intervention. And then there is another layer within the light itself, movement. As the wind moves through the leaves, sunlight breaks through the canopy in shifting patterns. This creates what we call dappled light, where patches of brightness flicker gently across the ground and your body. These subtle fluctuations occur at specific frequencies, often between 1 and 20 cycles per second. And your brain does not treat this kind of light the same way it treats steady or artificial lighting. The visual cortex processes these natural rhythms differently. When researchers measure brain activity in these conditions, they often observe an increase in alpha wave patterns. These brain states associated with calm awareness, alert but not stressed. At the same time, the more intense beta wave activity, which is linked to focused tension and vigilance, begins to decrease. What you experience is not dramatic. There is no sudden shift, no obvious signal. But slowly, your thoughts become less scattered. Your body begins to relax. You feel present without effort. This is not imagination. It is a measurable response to the way light is reaching your eyes and being processed by your brain. So now, sitting in that chair beneath the tree, 2 layers have already changed your environment completely. The air is cooler, not just shaded, but actively losing heat. And the light is no longer raw sunlight. It has been filtered, adjusted, and tuned in a way that supports your biology. You are breathing differently, seeing differently, and your brain is beginning to shift into a calmer state. All of this is happening quietly, without any conscious awareness, and yet your body is already responding. But what comes next moves even deeper, because beyond heat and light, the tree is also changing the very chemistry of the air you breathe. And once you move beyond heat and light, the third layer begins to operate in a way that is completely invisible, yet deeply biological. Because the tree is not only shaping temperature and filtering light, it is also actively releasing chemical compounds into the air around you. And these compounds are not random. They are part of the tree's own defense and communication system. But when you inhale them, they begin to influence your body in measurable ways. Trees produce and release volatile organic compounds, especially a group known as terpenes. These include substances like alpha-pinene, beta-pinene, and limonene. They are generated inside the tree through metabolic processes and released into the surrounding air. Through the same tiny openings in the leaves, the stomata that handle transpiration. Some are also emitted from the bark itself. In a forest, the concentration of these compounds can become surprisingly high. On a warm day, a single hectare of trees can release several kilograms of these airborne molecules into the atmosphere. But what matters most is not the entire forest, it's the space directly beneath the canopy. That is where these compounds tend to accumulate. The canopy acts as a natural barrier to wind. Its layers of leaves slow down air movement, reducing wind speed significantly compared to open space. When the air becomes still, these volatile compounds are no longer quickly dispersed. Instead, they linger and build up in the exact area where a person would sit or stand. This creates a localized pocket of chemically enriched air. And even though you may not consciously smell anything unusual, your body is still interacting with these compounds every time you breathe. Because the threshold for your immune system to respond is far lower than the threshold for your nose to detect a scent. When these compounds enter your lungs, they begin to interact with your body at a cellular level. One of the most studied effects involves natural killer cells, often referred to as NK cells. These are part of your immune system, responsible for identifying and destroying virus-infected cells and abnormal cells before they develop into something more serious. Research has shown that exposure to these tree-derived compounds can significantly increase the activity of NK cells. In controlled studies, individuals who spent just a few hours in a forest environment showed measurable improvements in immune function. Blood samples taken before and after exposure confirmed that these changes were not subjective, they were biological. What makes this even more compelling is that the effect does not disappear immediately. In many cases, the increase in immune activity lasted for several days after the exposure. This suggests that these compounds are not simply triggering a short-term reaction, but may be influencing gene expression and longer-term immune regulation. Then researchers asked an important question. Was it the environment as a whole, the visuals, the calm, the natural setting, or was it specifically the chemistry in the air? To test this, they recreated the chemical conditions of a forest inside a controlled indoor space. Synthetic versions of these compounds were released into a room at concentrations similar to those found in nature. The result was clear. Even without trees, without fresh air, without any visual or emotional connection to nature, the immune response still occurred. NK cell activity increased in a similar way. This confirmed that the compounds themselves were the active factor. The chemistry alone was enough to produce the effect. This doesn't mean the experience of being in nature has no value. It does, but it shows that beneath the sense of calm or enjoyment, there is a measurable biological process taking place. The air you breathe under a tree is not just fresh. It carries specific molecules that your body recognizes and responds to. Temperature plays a role here as well. On warmer days, when you are more likely to seek shade, the tree increases its transpiration rate, The stomata open wider, releasing more water vapor, and along with it, more of these chemical compounds. So the same conditions that draw you toward the tree also increase the intensity of what the tree is providing. And yet all of this happens without your awareness. You don't feel your immune system becoming more active. You don't notice the molecules entering your lungs. What you may notice is a general sense of well-being, a lingering calm, or a subtle improvement in how your body feels hours or even days later. That feeling is often attributed to relaxation, to stepping away from stress, or simply being outdoors, but those factors are not the full explanation. The air itself is carrying something more, something precise, measurable, and biologically active. The chemistry of what you breathe directly affects your immune system. But there is another layer that enters through your ears, quietly reshaping how your brain interprets the world. The canopy is actively reshaping the soundscape. In built environments, sound reflects sharply off concrete and glass, creating an environment filled with echoes and sharp, high-frequency transients. Under a tree, leaves are soft and irregular. They absorb and scatter the energy of sound, acting as a natural low-pass filter for the sharp edges of urban noise. This matters because high-frequency sounds trigger your brain's threat detection system, the amygdala, releasing stress hormones even when you feel relaxed. Under a tree, what remains are safe, rhythmic patterns like birdsong. Your brain recognizes these as non-threatening, allowing your nervous system to truly rest. So, it is not just about volume, it is about structure. The canopy removes the chaotic, unpredictable elements of sound and allows through patterns that your nervous system interprets as stable and safe, and allows through patterns that your nervous system interprets as stable and safe. This shift reduces the constant background activation of your threat response system. What you experience is subtle but powerful. Your breathing slows slightly, muscle tension decreases, your thoughts become less fragmented. It becomes easier to focus or simply to sit without feeling restless. Many people describe this as calm, but what is actually happening is a reduction in continuous low-level stress signals that were previously going unnoticed. This is why sitting under a tree often feels mentally clearer. It is not just the absence of noise, it is the presence of a filtered sound environment that aligns with how your brain is designed to interpret safety. It is the presence of a filtered sound environment that aligns with how your brain is designed to interpret safety. So now 4 layers are working together at the same time. The air is cooler because heat is being actively removed. The light has been selectively filtered to favor beneficial wavelengths. The chemistry of the air is influencing your immune system. And the sound environment has been reshaped to reduce stress and support calm awareness. Each of these layers enters your body through a different pathway: skin, eyes, lungs, ears, and each one is measurable. None of them require belief or interpretation. They are physical processes operating continuously as long as you remain beneath the canopy. And yet, even with all 4 layers combined, researchers have found that there is still something more, another factor influencing the body in ways that are harder to detect but just as real. A 5th layer, quieter than the rest, operating through something you cannot see, hear, or feel directly, but which still shapes the environment around you. And even after accounting for temperature, light, chemistry, and sound, researchers kept finding something that didn't fully add up. The improvements in the body, lower cortisol, better heart rate variability, a deeper sense of calm, were often stronger than what those 4 layers alone could explain. That's where the 5th layer begins, and it operates in a domain most people never consider: the electromagnetic environment surrounding you. Modern urban spaces are filled with invisible fields, electrical wiring inside buildings, power lines overhead, mobile networks, Wi-Fi signals, and countless electronic devices all contribute to a constant background of electromagnetic radiation. These fields span a wide range of frequencies, from the low hum of electrical current at 50 Hertz to the much higher frequencies used for wireless communication. You don't consciously feel these signals, but your body exists within them continuously. And importantly, their intensity is not the same everywhere. When you move away from dense infrastructure and into natural environments, the strength of these fields begins to decrease. Under a tree canopy, that reduction becomes more noticeable. Wood and leaf tissue are not transparent to electromagnetic energy. They absorb and scatter portions of these fields, especially when layered in large numbers as they are in a canopy. At the same time, the physical distance from major sources, buildings, cables, transmitters, further reduces exposure. Measurements taken in forested areas have shown that electromagnetic field intensity can drop significantly compared to open urban spaces at similar distances from infrastructure. But the tree is not just passively reducing these fields. It is also actively connected to the ground in a way that most built structures are not. Inside the tree, water is constantly moving from roots to leaves through the xylem. This water is not pure. It contains dissolved minerals, making it an electrically conductive solution. The entire tree becomes a vertical column of conductivity, linking the canopy above directly to the soil below. The ground carries a natural electrical charge maintained by atmospheric processes. When a tree is rooted there, it becomes part of that system. This creates a stable reservoir of electrons. It's not isolated. It's integrated into the Earth's natural electrical balance. Beneath the canopy, you're shielded from artificial noise. It's electrically quieter than any building. Inside buildings, electrical systems create a saturated environment. Your body, relying on electrical signals, operates best in the forest. Research shows improved autonomic function and lower stress here. The connection to the ground is stronger. A building can insulate sound, but it cannot recreate the grounded, low-noise environment a tree provides. It's a process refined over millions of years, waiting for you to simply sit and breathe. And when these 5 layers come together, the result is not just comfort. It is a measurable shift in how your body functions. Your heart rate variability improves, your stress hormones begin to drop, your blood pressure decreases, your brain activity shifts toward a calmer, more balanced state, and your immune system becomes more active. None of these changes are caused by a single factor. They emerge from the convergence of all 5 layers working together. A complete environmental system interacting with a body that evolved within it. And once you begin to see that, the difference between those 2 chairs, the one beside the building and the one beneath the tree, esse fati atipostim, stops being a matter of preference. It becomes a matter of physics, biology, and the environment your body was designed to recognize. And when all 5 of these layers come together, something even more important begins to emerge. Not just how the environment changes around you, but how your body responds over time. Because this response is not random, and it is not new. It is something deeply familiar to your biology, something your system has been calibrated for over thousands of generations. For most of human history, the space beneath the tree canopy was not occasional. It was normal. It was where people spent the majority of their waking hours. Food was prepared there. Rest was taken there. Conversations happened there. And the heat of the day was endured there. The open sky was something to pass through, not something to remain under for long periods. The canopy was the default environment. That matters because the human nervous system developed under those exact conditions. It adapted to the temperature patterns created by evaporative cooling, not the dry, radiating heat of concrete and asphalt. It adapted to light filtered through chlorophyll, not the artificial spectrum of indoor lighting or the unfiltered intensity of direct sun. It adapted to air that carried biological compounds released by plants, not chemically neutral or mechanically filtered air. It adapted to sound environments where sharp, unpredictable noise was rare and where natural patterns dominated. And it adapted to an electromagnetic environment that was relatively quiet, grounded, and stable. All of these calibrations were set long before buildings, long before electricity, long before cities existed. Indoor environments are a very recent development in evolutionary terms, and the modern urban environment is even more recent. The shift happened too quickly for the body to fully adapt, so what happens instead is subtle. The body doesn't signal an obvious error. It doesn't produce a clear warning that something is missing. Instead, it adjusts. It treats the modern environment as normal, even if it is not optimal. The result is a baseline state that many people have come to accept without question. Slightly elevated stress levels, reduced recovery, a constant low-level alertness that never fully turns off. This state is often mistaken for normal functioning, but it is not the baseline the body was designed for. It is a response to an environment that differs in every key dimension from the one it evolved within. And this is why the response to sitting under a tree feels immediate. It is not because something new is happening. It is because something familiar has returned. The body recognizes the environment and it begins to shift back toward a state it was built to enter under those conditions. This shift follows a clear timeline. In the first few minutes, the most obvious changes occur. The cooler air reduces thermal stress, and the filtered sound environment lowers background tension. The body begins to move away from a state of alertness. Within 5 to 10 minutes, the effects of light begin to register. The near-infrared wavelengths reaching your skin start to influence cellular activity. And the dappled patterns of light help shift brain activity toward a calmer, more balanced rhythm. Thoughts become less scattered and attention stabilizes without effort. After about 20 minutes, measurable physiological changes begin to appear. Heart rate variability increases and blood pressure starts to decrease. These are not subjective feelings. They are changes that can be tracked and measured. The immune system begins to respond. The compounds in the air accumulate in your system. All of this happens without any effort. The only requirement is proximity. The difference between those two chairs was never just about comfort. It was about two entirely different physical systems. The chair beneath the tree exists in a space shaped by a living system, one that cools the air and edits the light. Sit under a tree. Give it time, 20 minutes, an hour if you can. Let your body respond in the way it was designed to. Same afternoon, same place, two chairs. But now you understand that what separates them is not subtle at all.